Ah, live.
Once a week, three laddies come together from distant lands to talk about Bigfoot, Martians, ghosts, time travel, chupacabras, and the Sweetwater legend.
I think we're all huge fans of the Sweetwater legend.
This is the Fortean Slip with your host, Chris York.
Say no to Quaaludes? Fuck no. Wait a minute. No. Say yes.
Co-host, Steve Elkhorn.
Like, take a break, shut my camera off, go
Yeah.
have a sandwich.
And sometimes special guest, Matt Knapp.
Just
Right,
accept it for what it is and just watch it and enjoy it.
They don't know who you are. They don't know what you want. If you're looking for entertainment, you may have come to the wrong podcast. But what they do have is a very particular set of skills.
There are no cows.
No cows.
No.
No cows were harmed in the making of this incident. We often wish that your relationship went much like that of the praying mantis.
I thought that was a reference to everything being green.
Yeah, sure you did. Carry on, gentlemen. I'm going to do something else for a little while.
Wow, Steve, would you like us to stop the program so you continue to do your shit?
You're about to witness the strength of creep knowledge.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Fortean Slip. This is episode 140, the Sasquatch Playbook, or the Sam Squatch Playbook, or the fucking, I don't know. It's the fucking Bigfoot Playbook. It's every bad play you've ever thought you could make out in the woods. Steve Kulls has laid it out. Yep. Joining us again, Mr. Steve Kulls. And over the well, you gave that book to me. God, it was a while ago now. It was like four weeks or so ago. And I had started it. And got into the very beginning of it, which is mostly stuff about your background, your history, if you will. And then I kind of like fell into everything going on. So I had other things that I was doing, so I put it on the back burner, reading it, and then I literally got back into it yesterday. And I plowed through the majority of it yesterday while I was sitting around yesterday, and then finished it up this morning. But yeah, and like I was telling you before the show, thought it was a good book. One thing that Katie and I noticed, and Steve, I'm gonna offer my services to you in the future for a mere $50, Bob. Mere $50, you know, right out the gate, you know, and just an honorable mention. Katie said she'd do it for a fucking gift card and an honorable mention. I'll proofread your next fucking book for you.
Believe it or not, that was a glitch. A lot of people have said that, and the book was proofread, and the book shows completely 100% proofread, even on my editors. Showing no grammatical errors, no misspellings or anything. And for some reason, when the book went to print, it came out with misspelling. So I don't know what happened in the transfer to there. So that was, and that's the first time I've used Kindle Direct.
Yeah.
My other two books weren't. And yeah, there was a couple of misspellings in my other books, but not to the degree in this book. So there's something in Amazon's process, new processes that are causing that.
The problem for Katie is she's a grammar Nazi. So she said, she was telling me, she's like, I'm getting hung up on all the errors. And I'm like, yeah, man, like because seriously though, there are quite a few.
Yeah, I know. And the book actually had been proofread. It had been it went through autocorrect at least 60 times.
Wow.
Because every time I do a chapter and anytime I polish up a chapter, I'd run it through the checks again.
Right.
So
Yeah.
no idea why.
And, and for me, it wasn't that bad. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
destroy my flow when I read.
Yeah.
But yeah, I plowed through it, and like I was telling you before the show,
Unless I gave you a copy that wasn't autocorrected yet.
I bought
Because
my copy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. That makes
she
sense.
bought- yeah. So yeah, I think it was just it's something. Something must have happened.
I don't know.
So yeah, I got through it, and like I was telling you, for somebody like me, or for somebody like Steve, who's been in this for a bit, seen a few things. It wasn't a lot of knowledge. Like I told you, I learned a few things about you.
Okay.
But as far as like when it comes to like Bigfoot research, like I was saying, a lot of stuff that I've been screaming about for a long time.
Yep. Absolutely.
Proper procedures, doing things the proper way, making sure that you document everything.
Yep.
Which I think is huge. But to go back, so to give everybody a little bit of backstory about this without going into too much detail, so people go out there and take a look at the book, because I do think for the for the people out there who have just dipped their toes into Bigfoot, great book for somebody to check out.
Right.
I think it gives you a great overview of a bunch of different things and Bigfoot research itself. But you you talk about your past and how you get into doing loss prevention in stores, which I think is funny for me, because I worked for Walmart for quite a long period of time, and knew many a loss prevention associate over the years.
Oh yeah.
And we had some fucking doozies, Steve.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
We had some guys that literally would chase people out of the store through the doors and tackle them going out of the building. Like those types of guys. They had to get rid of most of those guys.
Well,
Some of
that's
them-
no
some of them-
offense. That's because there's been and pardon the analogy, and this is going to be kind of a dirty term, but the whole process in that field has become it's the pussification of that field.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, people used to be afraid to go to stores and steal stuff.
Yes, correct.
And now, because of a few bad eggs, like we're living now, that would just happened in Minneapolis, because of a few bad eggs, because there were AP agents that did the same thing those so-called police officers did in Minneapolis to a shoplifting suspect. And because of bad training, and because they've scaled everything back in a lot of stores.
Oh yeah.
And that's a damn shame.
Well, to some degrees, yeah. Like it they can't, like, literally. I think one of the guys told me they cannot grab you and physically make you go back into the store anymore. Like, you have to agree to do it.
Right. Yeah.
They can't.
If you don't, they can't stop you. They can't try to take whatever you've taken from you. Like, I was like, you're kidding me. Like, you can't. Yeah. And I mean, and they have, like, the perfect storm has to happen.
Yeah.
Literally at this point. It's like, what the fuck happened? How did, like, stopping somebody from stealing something become fucking Indiana Jones and the fucking Temple of Doom?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I've seen it up close and personal, because I worked in the environment for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought it was funny that you work in you've worked in loss prevention, and that's where you made a lot of your bread and butter over the years.
Yeah.
It's because it's a weird field. And
it
attracts strange guys too.
Yes and no. There's a lot of cool guys. There's a lot of weirdos that think it's one thing, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I always look at it from the aspect of, I've had guys, well, look at that guy. Hold on. What is our job? Our job is to protect the store's assets. That has nothing to do with us. Move on.
Mhm.
If it doesn't involve the safety of, my people in the store, my customers in the store, myself, my partners, back it off, back off it. It's not worth it. I don't care if somebody's selling drugs in the parking lot. I don't care about, any of that. Unless they're creating such a disturbance that it's affecting other customers, obviously.
I've in my time there, I think I saw more people get busted out of jewelry than any other department.
Yeah, jewelry was a big one at Walmart.
And it wasn't for the jewelry itself. A lot of the cashiers would just steal that money.
Oh yeah. Well, the hell, I've been with police agencies serving search warrants for a few different companies over the years.
Yeah.
I had one guy in the home improvement field, and this is when I was actually a regional investigator, and my job was entirely to investigate internal theft. And when I came into the store had, and the store is no longer in business, and it used to be the old, it was called the Heckinger Group.
Mhm.
And I was a regional investigator for them, and they owned Builders Square and HQ home quarters. Remember HQ?
I remember HQ.
Yeah. Well, Builders Square was part of them too. And I remember going into the one store. They're like, "Well, where do you want to base your store out of?" Because I had 6 or 7 stores in New York, and I had 2 in Pennsylvania. And I was like, "Well, which store has the highest, bad news?" Well, the one in Colony, New York, which is also which is like a suburb of Albany almost. Well, it's got 8.9% shrink, which means 9 cents of every dollar being spent is disappearing.
Right.
That's huge. I went in there, and in 1 month, I arrested 22 employees out of 74. And
that's the one that you note in the book, right?
I believe it may have been.
Yeah, I think
that's where the store manager just
he up and
no call, no show. He was gone. I mean, here's a guy making $100,000 a year. I'm not coming to work. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I'm
because
good.
But yeah, I've been on those jobs too, where, hey, you're not coming in. Oh yes, you are. Many a job I carried not 1 but 2 sets of handcuffs. One job I actually carried 2 sets of handcuffs and wore a ballistic vest, just because of the danger factor.
And like I said, working at the different Walmarts that I had worked at over the years, when I did work there, I saw some crazy shit happen, with theft. And I remember this one lady. They all of a sudden they hauled her into the office, and there were police officers there, the whole 9 yards, and we're all, what the fuck? Well, come to find out, she was manning the gate in Lawn and Garden, and she was just letting her family members load up carts and walk straight out through, to the tune of just thousands of dollars worth of air conditioners and stuff. And we were all just blown away by it. You get checked. You literally every day go out for a cigarette back when I go out for my smoke breaks and get checked at the door with my soda receipt.
Yeah.
The same woman who was letting out her mom and shit with fucking $500 air conditioners. I was like, holy shit. But when I read about that in the book, and you do mention it quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you do bring up that whole thing about going into that store and taking out 2 employees and the store manager. That's in the
I'll tell you one story out of that same story that I noted and make the book. And at the time, and boy, did I get in deep crap at home for it too. I had a girlfriend who was like, well, I got to go in. I got to take care of this. So I went over to the store. I figured it'd be in and out a couple hours. The kid basically, somebody had said that the kid was basically underrang a male subject for instead of the guy had $500 worth of stuff, $700 worth of stuff. They said they only saw $20 exchange hands. By the time I got home at 1 o'clock in the morning, we had served a search warrant on the guy's house that he had got it and recovered $56,000 worth of stuff he did not pay for.
Holy.
They literally had to get a truck and put all the stuff on the truck. And I mean, it would look like a very little amount turned out to be this huge amount. And I was like, well, damn. I guess I'm not going to make that party I needed to go to tonight. And that caused a little bit of trouble. You know, when I thought was going to be, okay, I'll get this kid to admit, send him off with the cops, I'm done. No, it turned out to be this huge thing where he said, well, I've been underringing him for weeks and he's rebuilding and remodeling his home and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay.
Well, for those type of people, once they start,
Well, they can't help themselves.
no, they
Right.
can't stop.
Yeah, they fall into it. I knew a couple of young girls that did that wound up stealing from registers, and like I said, in the jewelry department.
It starts small.
And
And
they
then-
couldn't stop.
Yeah.
That's how they got caught. Is they
Yep.
couldn't stop.
It becomes an option after time.
Yeah, well,
What's that?
one of my greatest catches was, this has got to be going back 20 years now. Maybe even greater, 25 years, was this, they couldn't figure out. And I worked for many years. I actually cut my teeth in a drugstore chain, and very, very good policies. We were hands-on. We did what we needed to do. And we had this one store where nobody could figure out. Actually, the director of loss prevention at the time could not figure out how she was stealing. And my boss, before, when he was in my position, couldn't figure out how he was doing. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try. So I take all the journals home for the week. And I said, you know what? Give me your weekend cashier's tapes. Start going through it. And this is how, you know, and the reason why this is important, this is how I analyze things. Like, okay, if there's something going on, let me just test all the theories here. When I came back, I said, I know what she's doing. And then like they both looked at me because my boss actually his office was next to the director's. He's, wait a minute, come with me. He leads me into the director's office. Okay, Kulls, tell him what you said to me. I said, well, how come the weekend cashier is out selling cigarettes, which is the number one item sold in the drugstores, believe it or not, next to medications? How come she's out selling cigarettes 4-1 over, is being outsold 4-1 to the weekend cashier? This girl's working 16 hours and she's selling 4 times the amount of cigarettes that the full-time cashier's selling. And I go, you know, if she's taking cigarette money, she's taking third-party copays, which was huge in drugstore business because it's always even dollar amounts. If you got a $10 copay, I just won't ring it up, stick it in my pocket, done. Which she was doing when she was no selling the registers. So we put a camera in her, and this is the kind of stuff we had. We had codes and stuff. So we'd go in the store. Nobody knew we were in the store. Hook a camera up, boom, get her, sit her down. She's a 68-year-old woman at this point in time. And she had been there for 4.5 years. And when and my one boss was trying to interview her, he couldn't get her. And he goes, I don't know. He goes, you want to take a try? I go, yeah. So I just start saying, I just pull out my detailed list of the week and I start going down date, time, amount of money, date, time, amount of money, date, time, amount of money. When I hit the 5th one, she says, okay. You're right. You're right. I said, matter of fact, you got $20 in your pocket.
But she broke. She broke, Steve. She should have fucking been like, no, I want an attorney. That's what you fucking do, Steve.
Well, the whole point is I'm not speaking to her as a law enforcement officer.
No, and at any point in time, she can just go, I'm out until you guys call the cops.
Oh, and we would have.
Right.
We would have.
But that's the thing. Like,
yeah.
see, what most people don't understand, and I'm not trying to advocate for people to do this. Like, I mean, there are people who do some shitty stuff, but
Right.
most people aren't smart enough to just wait out.
Well, that's
their
where you're
attorney.
wrong. That's where you're wrong. You see, as what I'm using is, and I sit there and I can watch these cop shows and go, oh, that's why the guy lawyered up. He fucked up. Because they're not using, I was trained. In fact, I was trained at the same schools that the FBI trains at. Same type of, and when I talk to somebody, I'm not accusing them. I'm actually saying, listen, I already know what's going on here. We're trying to find out why would you do something. And we try to give them an out. We try to make it's all about lessening the moral implication. And as an innocent person like you, me, Steve, I don't know about Katie, but as we're all sitting around, we're sitting there and reviewing this as an innocent person. Well, I would just do this. I would just do that. But you're not in that position. So psychologically, you're at a disadvantage when you get in there. And your natural response is to talk your way out of it.
Yeah, that's why I fucked myself my first time.
Right.
Which will never ever happen again. But see, here's the problem with that. So here's the problem. That and we'll move on after from this. But the problem that I see with that is that now, because it's happened to me,
right,
I will never ever ever trust another investigator or law enforcement officer ever again when they say anything to me.
Oh, I don't blame you. I don't.
And I said to somebody recently, I said, that's not to say that if I saw a police officer off duty, you know, and he's like, hey man, it's pretty nice out today. You know, I'm not gonna be like, no, he's fucking lying to me.
Right. But there's a big difference between talking to somebody like me and somebody like a law enforcement investigator.
Yeah, but talking to somebody like you can wind you up talking to a law enforcement.
It very well could. But if, for example, if you're a mom, which a lot of times we deal with these single moms that work in stores, and they're having medical issues with a kid or rent issues or trying to get kicked out of school, if they sit there and they come clean on that, I can recommend and say, listen, I don't feel comfortable with prosecuting this person because they're going through a difficult time. Yes, they're going to lose their job, but
right.
That arrested, we can say
and you're right, and you're right about that, Steve.
We have that
those people,
right?
But see, what so many times people have done that and come clean, and then gotten fucked.
That's with mainly law enforcement. Oh, we want to hear your side of the story.
Yeah,
and you got to understand, a law enforcement interrogator, their main goal is to put that person on the scene. Once they put them on the scene. They can say whatever. It doesn't matter. That person's on the scene.
They're just trying to hide.
They're done.
They're just trying to end the report. Like they're trying to fill all the dot the I's, cross the T's. Hey, pass that shit in. I'm done with that shit.
Now, granted, I remember catching this woman catching a shit ton of baby formula. Right, right, the baby formula, and. The assistant manager on duty who was acting as my witness, she was like 7 months pregnant. So I'm like, oh, this is not going to be good. And, the first thing the assistant manager says to me privately is, oh my God, she's stealing all that baby formula. She's probably a single mom, blah, blah, blah. I elbow her, I go, watch this. Why are you stealing it? Well, my boyfriend sells it. I'm like, oh.
Alport? On his Amazon account?
No. So it's like, okay, you're going.
Right.
But you got to understand is that you have somebody that's nickel and diming a store for weeks on end. I can live with that. And we can get somebody down across, get their real reason, get them termed, and so be it. We'll get a civil restitution. They can pay us back $10 a week with $10 a month, whatever. And once we get that case cleared, it's good for me. My goal is not to, it was never to necessarily put somebody over for prosecution. When it came to employees, it was about getting rid of that person from our staff.
Right. Correct.
And so I have a completely different mode training of thought.
Right.
Especially if it's a really complicated case. You get somebody that's underringing once or twice. Yeah, I'm not going to refer them. Mm-hmm. You get somebody that's been doing it for months on end for greed and, living large. I mean, I had one girl at the home improvement store that was buying lunches for everybody at the store, buying pizzas, and sitting next to her was the store manager that had decided to no call, no show.
When I was mad about starting the new addiction podcast that I'm going to do, a guy, we talked about gambling addiction, and I worked with this guy at Humpty Dumpty Potato Chip Company, and he was stealing the cash and buying scratch tickets.
Oh.
Oh, dude, and it got like because he would try to fucking win and pay everything back,
Yep.
and then just keep going, and he just fucking got so deep.
Slippery slope.
And and I said to Matt, I said that the weird thing about fucking gambling addiction is it's not the winning,
It's
the
not.
losing.
Yeah.
And it's one of those weird addictions where they're addicted to the wrong side of it. Like,
what is addiction?
Yeah.
It's never about winning. If you think about it, somebody shooting up is shooting up to forget what their bad stuff is. It's not
Right,
winning. It's still losing.
it's about that. It's about the feeling, because I was an opiate addict. I used to use opiates, and it was about forgetting. Yes, but it was the feeling, that euphoric. That's what made you forget. See, that's why I don't quite understand the gambling thing, because I can't understand the idea of, oh my God, all my money's gone. I don't look at that and go, oh, but again, I don't, that's not my thing either.
And
Like
see,
my thing was never that. So that's why I don't understand it.
Well, I think the big thing with that is that every addiction begins with the psychology.
Yeah.
Now, in certain cases like opioids and other stuff, they eventually become physical. Even alcoholics, they get the DTs when they don't drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But with gambling, it's pure psychological. There is no, and it's that relief.
It's all about what you do to you.
And what they live on is that release of endorphins when they win. But what happens is, just like drugs, that when you consistently keep losing, and now and you're trying to win just to pay back, now those endorphins don't matter to you. Now it becomes desperation. And there are people, as we do know, live off of sympathy. It's called Munchausen's disorder.
I know a lot of those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are people,
and Steve, this is a good way to kind of segue too.
Yeah.
To like the a part of your book where we talk about the hoaxers and the
psychology of hoaxing.
The psychology of fucking hoaxing. And I'm gonna let you go on this because I've read the book and I gotta piss like crazy. I'm a coffee deep. Alcorn, you take the fucking reins for a minute, will you? Well, I go drain my bladder. But but seriously, this stuff about the hoaxing, these fucking people are such, especially and Kulls, I want you to go into the habituators. Those goddamn attention-seeking fucking cunts, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, I look at them in a little bit of different light. I look at them; they're just, for whatever reason, they need to elevate themselves. They need to feel special in some particular group. They need to, whatever reason, their life is there's something wrong in their life. I'll give you a great example. Years ago, I had a guy who was going through a divorce and was living 3-4 months by himself. And then he reports a Bigfoot sighting. And, in talking to this guy, and I do a pretty good psychological interview when I talk to people. Do you go through anything recently? Well, I just got divorced. How long were you married? Oh, he's married to her for 15 years and we got divorced. And so now this guy is living by himself. He's got no kids. He's got nothing. So now he starts seeing Bigfoot everywhere. And the reason why is that makes them feel, special. It makes them want to feel. One of the more recent ones, and Chris, you'll like that, is the Bigfoot Peeper.
The Bigfoot Peeper?
Yeah, there was a couple of months ago, there was a Bigfoot picture being posted around a couple of Facebook groups where this Bigfoot was looking in a window.
Oh, yes.
Right.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I completely destroyed that one. And one of the, number one, being a private investigator, I have access to databases that most people don't. And when the guy started putting the stuff out, I ended up finding out his name wasn't really what it said. He said his name was Scott Yeoman. His real name was actually Jonathan Scott Yeoman, not Scott Yeoman. And I had done that by looking at his social media, corresponding him to a place in Indiana, which he said he was living in I believe, Colorado. And he did. Now he did. But he had ties to Kokomo, Indiana. And I kept finding him. So I said, well, let me look in Kokomo, Indiana for this name. And it did. It came up with a Jonathan Scott Yeoman. And then the other thing that blurbed up on it was he was a convicted child molester.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Yep.
So what ends up happening is, and this is the psychology behind it. Was he trying to draw people into perhaps get another child into his grips? I don't think so. But when you think about it in his position, he is a sex offender. He is having relationship issues, probably because of the offense. So he is, he's using a different name. He's cutting out his first name, so hopefully nobody will know he's a sex offender. And he feels needing to belong to something. I got nothing better to do with my life. I'm working a menial job, and what is there to life? Everybody in life wants to have some sort of higher purpose.
So with a guy like this Yeoman dude, is he really seeing Bigfoot? I mean,
no. When I broke down the video, I found out he never lived where he said he lived.
So it was a total complete hoax.
Right. He lived in a very suburban, very close to the urban area of the city of, I believe it was Golden, Colorado, where he had actually filmed it. I could be wrong. It's been a while. But anyway, I showed that there was a light in the picture, and where he lived, you could see that behind his backyard is another row of houses that had French doors and little patios on them. And the lights you see in the back are actually that of the neighbor across the way. And that's the porch lights there. So it matched up perfectly to where he lived.
So the interesting thing about these people, the people that hoax. Okay, so you have different psychologies. So you've got the people that do it long term. Like you've got these people who are committed, like they don't break. Like I would call Linda Newton Perry one of those people. She's in it for the long fucking haul. Any of these people that swear up and down that they're habituating with Bigfoot, but they present no evidence to support that, and all they do is just keep saying, but no, I'm still having these interactions. They're doing this long haul bullshit, blowing smoke up my ass hoax. Then you've got the people that do the short little bursts. They put out a video and that's it. And then you've got the build people. Like I would call Matilda. The Matilda one, is that the one? Was that the carpet squatch there in the forest? Was that Matilda?
Matilda was the Chewbacca looking thing.
Yeah,
but there was also at the same time with that, wasn't there like the breathing carpet on the ground?
Yeah,
I think that was part of the build.
Part of that. So there are those types of hoaxes where there's all this build, there's all this backstory.
In actuality, Chris, that wasn't a build. That was put out and then it disappeared, and then it mysteriously showed up with the Ketchum Project stuff.
Yeah.
See, that was I tried to put it out and it failed, so now I'm going to try a different route.
Okay, all right. So I thought that one was more of a build. So, and then you've got people like fucking Standing, who he's a long haul, but he's always got something new.
You know why?
Are you going to tell me why?
Money.
Oh yeah, well that's that's the obvious one,
right? That's that's obvious.
You just have to go back to your buddy fucking Rick Dyer for that.
Rick Dyer, I don't think was as well. The first one was more about money. The second one, I don't know, but each of them have deep psychological issues.
Yeah, well, fuck yeah.
standing, and I'll be the first to let you know. I was supposed to cut a couple more videos this week, but I actually have some big information on standing that's going to be coming out very soon.
Does it have anything to do with those goddamn gorilla gloves?
No.
No. I tried to get in touch with that kid. The kid that did that YouTube video where he went with standing and then, said he found the gorilla gloves there.
Yeah.
All we got is him saying that, and there's no real follow up to that. So.
Yeah, there's no follow up or anything. Well, I emailed that guy
Mm-hmm.
and I got nothing.
Well, yeah, you know why? Because standing has more trolls per capita than.
Well, no, probably the guy just didn't give a shit. He did.
No, he probably took a beating by the trolls.
Oh, the standing. Well,
the standing trolls are horrible, and I know because when I put that video out, if you look at my YouTube channel, the most popular video I have out there is on standing.
Yeah, same here. My YouTube channel.
All my standing videos do very well, but not as well as my Dogman bedtime stories.
But wait till wait till you hear there's going to be a nuclear explosion when this comes out.
Oh, nice.
I
can't stand the motherfucker. I think he's I watch. Okay, so his bullshit little fucking documentary there. What was that called? The one that was on Netflix, Steve.
Okay. Discovering Sasquatch or something like that.
Yeah, okay. So I have never seen a more contrived bag of shit in my entire life. It was more cutscenes of him in a fucking goddamn ghillie suit, him in fucking all kinds of different camo, riding a goddamn fucking ATV, snowmobile, fucking side by side, him running through the woods, him fucking walking through the woods, him fucking climbing this, him fucking scaling down that. What did any of that have to do with the overall documentary arc of the Sylvanic Bigfoot, which he never took us to that area in the fucking documentary?
Right. Well, there is a big difference in a couple of things, and let me try to break it down psychologically. In my book, the reason why I put my information and what I did in the past is obviously to build my background and how I came to the assertions in the book. Books are completely. If Standing came out with a book and wrote about himself in the first couple of chapters, that would have been perfectly acceptable because you need to know what footing a person has.
Mm-hmm.
Has no place in a documentary where I'm going to show little action poses of myself all the time and talk about myself all the time. That's not what people want to see. They want to see the investigation. They want to see what comes of that investigation. They want to see analysis.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, some people love him. But I have to also believe that a lot of the trolls that come across on the Standing stuff are actually his sock accounts. Now,
I definitely believe that.
Right. Now, there is a lot of information out there, and I will say this, that is very well known that Standing has a huge ego. Huge. So, when you go out and when people put out videos such as I have and they get attacked, why does Standing so quiet about this? Because he's doing it behind the scenes. That there's no doubt on that. But maybe in the post show chat, I'll give you a little more info on that. You're going to be blown away.
Oh, okay.
But it looks like that.
See, and here's the thing: I would tomorrow have Standing on my show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tomorrow, I would interview that motherfucker, and I would say the exact same thing I just said to you. That his documentary was the most contrived bag of bullshit that I've ever seen in my life. Right. But I would also, at the end of that, say, why'd you do that?
Yeah. Well,
but I mean, but for the record, people have asked him to come on our show and he has declined.
Of course.
So, I mean,
he can't control that.
And people don't realize that he was on my show, Squatchdetective Radio, back in 2006 when he had just started out.
Wow. Back in the beginning.
Back in the beginning, and I purposely put him on to get him to commit to something.
I'm gonna be honest. When I was stupid and naive in the beginning, when I first started looking at Bigfoot videos, and I saw some of his videos, and I think it was the I'm gonna tell you, it was the
crawling up the hill.
It was the Day Watcher one that got me. That was the one that got me because it was early on. I hadn't seen a lot of stuff, and I saw that video and I went, "Wait, what the fuck?" You know, and I went back and I watched it again. And I was like, and it took me a little while to get to know people in the community and then start seeing things and going, "Oh, that is
right."
And then I kicked myself in the ass for ever even giving it a fucking second of credence.
Well, like I said, and especially in the book, I point out that the stuff you need to look at is when you have somebody saying they have something and there's no verifiable evidence. They're very detailed on the stuff you cannot verify, and they're very vague on stuff you can verify. That's what gave away the Bigfoot Peeper. I saw this creature, and he's describing the creature and blah, blah, blah. And then after 10 minutes, his wife comes in and she runs out really fast. And she calls the sheriff's department, but doesn't say which sheriff's department. So, it's little stuff like that. Then I grab my 40 cal. Well, after 10 minutes, now you're going to grab your gun after 10 minutes of this. So none of it makes sense, but your 40 cal, what kind of make and model? Besides, as it turned out, that as a convicted felon, you can't possess a handgun in Colorado. So it made no sense at all. He can't possess any kind of a handgun or any firearm at all. So when you have, I don't say, I grab my 40 caliber, I grab my Glock 40 or my Luger or my, yes, Steve, you look like you were wanting to say something.
No, he's probably got something going on.
Oh, yep, he does. Yeah. Sorry, the late night nachos gave him a little bit of the trots.
Probably.
So yeah, but as far as standing is concerned, when he first came out, and again, you may not have seen when his website first came out, in Sylvanic video number 1, which was complete. That was the tree shaker. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
The tree shaker.
Yeah. Well, if you look,
I want to say that I did see that one, but I don't. I'm not gonna. I won't throw all my cards on that one.
Right. But yeah, it's on the video I just put out a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago. The tree shaker one's like, here's this woman's voice going, "Oh, we got some little goat tracks here, and what do we have here? And then all of a sudden you hear this, and you see some snow come off a tree, and then you hear her go, "What the? Oh my God!" And then the video cuts out. And it's stuff like that. Again, when looking at evidence, and that's why it's so important, especially is number one, when you just have this little 5 or 7 or 10, 12 second clip of a creature, and that's all you get with no explanation. Oh, I thought I saw a Bigfoot. Here's the video. There's an issue there, because, if you're pro Patterson, not pro Patterson Gimlin film, doesn't matter. At least they made it believable by here's the before film, here's the after film, here's this whole story. You don't get that in your hoax video. Why? Because your hoaxers are lazy by normal rules. And the reason why is, think about it. I bust my ass out in the woods for 20 years, going on 21 years, or going on 22 years, actually. And I've had a couple of sightings, still haven't got a video of one, still haven't got really a picture of one. I think I may have a FLIR of one, have some audio, which of course audio is always inconclusive because you can't see what's making it. But here's these people that, well, I have this picture. Here's my blob squatch. Here's my this. Here's my that. Here's my that. And the psychology, especially of standing, they're looking to shortcut the process.
Right.
Right. So intrinsically, when you're trying to shortcut, you're being lazy about things. And then that's why you get no story behind it, and the story's inconsistent, and you don't have any before video, after video, stuff like that. And that's usually if somebody comes to me with a video or a trail cam picture, let me see the before trail cam pictures. Let me see the after. Well, I haven't got them. That's the only thing. Well, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Because I know when I got the Vermont trail cam photo, regardless of what you believe that or not, at least I know my leg's not being pulled. Well, here's the prior shots. Here's what happened. Here's when I put it out. Here's when you don't get that. And that should be a no-brainer for people out there looking, unless, of course, your confirmation bias is so shot that you want to believe everything is Bigfoot. And that's a sorry, sad day.
Sadly, though, there's a lot of people out there who are like that.
Oh, absolutely.
They really do believe it.
Okay, so
At first, I didn't think they really believed it. They really do believe it.
now, you know how I shut down the pro standing people? It's funny. It's funny as all heck. I put up the puppet face. You remember the Muppet, the first one he came out with the doll eyes, and it looked like it was felt and everything like that?
Yeah.
I put that picture up there. So you're telling me this is a Bigfoot? I'm going to ask you one question. Are you telling me this is a Bigfoot? None of them would answer it. Not a single one. They would turn around and say, you're just no, you didn't answer my question. You're sitting there. I'm going to ask you a question. Is this a Bigfoot? And I would send it out twice and say, I'm not going to answer your questions until you answer, is this a Bigfoot? And I had one guy say, well, and I laughed my ass off. I said, you know what? I'm going to use this from now on. And this was his defense. Well, if somebody took a picture of a Bigfoot and it looked like a carrot, who are you to say it doesn't look like a carrot?
Wow. You all just lost Ajax, Ashford. Good. Go fuck yourself. Have a good ride. Bye.
Wait, we had credibility.
Why? Because you believe
while you're at it, why don't you tug my cock while you're on your way out the door?
No. Hold on. So, Ajax, are you telling me Puppet Face, the Bigfoot Puppet Face, is a Bigfoot?
Yeah, he's all in with standing.
Yeah, are you telling me that that's a Bigfoot? Because if you are, you got.
Who mentioned standing? These people, it's like there's a radar or some shit, and they come out of the fucking woodwork.
God, they get so uptight. They think he's like some kind of fucking demigod or something. Like, I don't get it.
Okay, so you know why they think he's a demigod? Because he brought a case, and I hope Ajax is still listening, because he brought a case to the Canadian government.
Oh, that bullshit fucking Bigfoot is recognize it as a fucking
right.
Yeah, fuck out. Yeah.
Okay, but understand, people think that he was arguing the validity of Sasquatch. This is the actual case right here and the decision. It had nothing to do with Bigfoot. He sued the Canadian government for violating his civil rights because they did not recognize Bigfoot.
Violating his civil rights?
Correct. That was the basis of this. It was not based on any evidence whatsoever. No, puppet face, blinky, dark face, whatever that, the black face Sasquatch, none of that, the gorilla hands reaching up and grabbing the fruit, the gorilla gloves reaching the fruit, none of that made it to court. In fact, there's even, I don't have it highlighted on this copy.
Oh my God.
But yeah,
they violated his civil rights.
Look through Claudia's case, it was the same thing.
She was claiming that they violated her civil rights.
Basically, I mean, because there was nothing else.
No, hold on. Let's put Claudia's aside because I don't have that paperwork in front of me. So that would be just conjecture.
We had her on the show, and we literally told her, Steve, like, we completely disagree with you on this. Like, I mean, we were as nice as pie to her, but like,
but it was the same thing that Steve's discussing here. There was nothing in there that was evidence of anything. It was more you're violating my rights because you won't acknowledge it. It's the same.
Yeah.
Correct.
Wow.
Okay. Plaintiff admits that his claim is reasonable and the pleading should not be subject to a skeptical analysis. This is actually a decision from the court. Plaintiff admits that his claim is reasonable and pleading should not be subject to a skeptical analysis.
That's what he believes.
He further submits inter alia that a serious constitutional issue has been raised and denies that the pleadings are speculative on the strength of the video evidence he has captured of Sasquatch. However, it goes on to state somewhere in this that the plaintiff has not submitted any evidence whatsoever that a Sasquatch exists, and that's through his own doing.
I'll be suing next month for my civil rights being violated because you won't recognize Big Bird. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to Sesame Street.
Why haven't they told us?
Can you tell me how to get there?
Well, it's like the guy who says, who are you to say that a Sasquatch does not look like a carrot? Well, I don't know. If it quacks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it's a duck. If it looks like a carrot, smells like a carrot, acts like a carrot, it's a carrot. You know, if it
pleases the Canadian court, you violated my civil rights. My imaginary friend Snuffleupagus.
Exactly.
I'd like you to recognize that he exists.
Right.
Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to jump into this trash can and bitch at people for the rest of my life.
Ajax had to come back.
See what it says in this case, the plaintiff seeks declaration
Can't stand no more from you. I'm all gone. Oh, from you all, I'm gone. All right, see ya. Have a good time.
Apparently, you still haven't answered the question: is the puppet Bigfoot real Bigfoot?
And he's not going to answer that question.
No, of course not. They can't. So you have no argument. If you're gonna be all in for Todd standing, then you're gonna admit that puppet, that very first one he released, it looks like it's wearing a parka. Is a Sasquatch. If you've got nothing to say to that, if you can't answer that simple question, then sorry.
If it pleases the Canadian court, I'd like the court to recognize my rubber ducky as a water cryptid. Now, excuse me, I have to go get back into bed with my homosexual partner.
Yeah, I mean. The second point, there's 3 points. The declaration that Sasquatch is a hominoid or primate. Well, guess what? A hominoid is a primate. Number one. 2, a declaration that the defendant infringed the fundamental human rights of the plaintiff as it relates to his concerns regarding the Sasquatch. And 3, declaration that the defendant committed a dereliction of duty in regard recognizing and protecting the species. Well, you got to prove it's real first. And the court even said, our job is not to prove whether or not something's real or not. That's not our job. That's why we have environmental agencies to do that. So he lost, and he had to pay the fees on behalf for the Canadian government because he lost the case. So he has to pay the court costs.
But he had to have known going in. He had to have known going in.
I think it was a twofold thing. A twofold, so you can sucker people like Ajax in to think that he is doing something really good. He's not. Well, what has he produced? He's produced headshots of all these things. Why only headshots?
Yeah.
I mean, you have the video of the thing running up the hill, but after it falls down and it trips, and that was not even done by me. That was done by somebody else on YouTube saying, look at this. This is a guy in a suit. And, you look at the slowed down footage on my channel, and you can tell it looks like a costume to me. Now, I can't say that 100%, but
if it pleases the Canadian court, I'd like to prove that this frog that talks can connect me to this rainbow.
Well, it can give you.
Excuse me while I go fuck this pig.
it can willfully Chris, that talking frog can willfully give you the numbers of the winning lottery ticket for the addicted gamblers.
Oh, don't even get me fucking started with the fucking goddamn psychic, Steve.
No. It's a psychic. It's a psychic talking frog.
Oh Jesus! Call me now for your free swamp reading. Jesus, fuck you.
Ribbit. See, he just said, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like that old joke, a guy walks into a bar with a dog. Hey, what's on top of, I got the world's only talking dog. Well, I'm sorry, dogs aren't allowed here. Well, okay, watch, the dog talks. What's that on top of the house? Roof. See, he said roof. And the bartender looks at him slyly.
Alcorn joke.
Oh no. The bartender looks at him slyly and goes, yeah, right. He goes, yeah, ask him who's the greatest baseball player. Dog goes, Roof. See, he said Babe Ruth. Throws him out. Dog looks to the guy, says, maybe I should have said DiMaggio.
Bad.
I know, bad joke. But that's kind of the allegory to this whole thing is, is that people will say the damnedest things and believe them for whatever reason.
That idiot that is from Canada, I don't understand it.
Who, Ajax?
No, well, I don't know if Ajax is from Canada. I'm talking about.
You want good Canadian researchers, Tom Steenberg, excellent Canadian researcher.
Is he the one you had on your show?
For the massacre thing. Last week I had a new guy who's relatively new to the field. I had him on. He's from Canada as well. And
who do you have on tonight?
Tonight I have another Canadian, Justin Chernopensky.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I
thought you had another Canadian guy on tonight.
Yeah, I have 3 weeks of Canadians.
Steve, you look Alcorn. You look like you're fucking disheveled. Is everything all right? Do you look like you took some fucking? You might have taken some bad drugs. Everything good?
Looks like he was the pivot man.
I know, right? Like, fucking, what happened? What, like, horrible thing did you just witness in a fucking bathroom stall between two men?
No. Becoming a weekly thing, you questioning my sanity and shit.
Well, I mean, have you seen the look on your face?
I'm trying to understand this whole standing thing, and it perplexes me. The whole thing it's not standing that perplexes me. It's Ajax. The Ajaxes of the world. Those people I just don't get. I'm trying to figure out why. And so my mindset right now is, what the fuck is going on in their head? That they so fervently support a guy like that.
It's like supporting Biscardi.
Or anybody, or Johnson, or any of them.
Or Dyer, or anybody like that. There are so many holes in their stories. How about the Ajax, if you're still listening, which I believe you probably still are.
Sure.
How about the hair samples that he got tons of hair samples in 2005 in the cave as he walked through the little opening into the valley of Savannah and grabbed a bunch of hair samples.
I'd like to submit these hair samples from this animal that drums. No, I'm gonna go tour with Electric Mayhem.
Yeah. We never hear about those hairs again. How about that second grade sketch of the guy that went missing in the 30s? That the only reference to that anywhere is on Sylvanic.com. How about the thought that Sylvanic, this valley where the Sasquatch roam, where you say that the what do they call them now? The indigenous people or the Aboriginal people of Canada. Because they don't call them Native Americans in Canada. They call them, I think, original or whatever. But they supposedly know of this name Sylvanic when Sylvanic is a Latin term.
3 men went into Sylvanic. 121 came out. Bigfoot got the rest.
That's right. And, when you have this crazy story and then you put up Sylvanic video 1 where, we're investigating Sylvanic and we came out with a bunch of hair samples and I had a biologist with me and a botanist, and this is long before he knew Bindernagel or Meldrum or anything. I mean, this is 2005. And he supposedly had all these hair samples. Where'd they ever go?
Steve Alcorn doesn't trust him because he's a ginger. Right, Steve?
That is not true. I don't know why you always try to put things like that on.
Well, I mean, for one, because your mic's horrible tonight. Yeah, I can hear you, but
It's good before the show.
it's horrible. Before the show, it was okay. Now it's horrible.
Make sure I'm on the right one. Maybe I'm back on the webcam mic.
No,
I think you are.
You're just horrible. Your voices. You sound like you're in the room somewhere. You don't sound like you're on a microphone. You're
Thank you.
disheveled.
Thank you. Somebody, my first name is they call them First Nation people. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I forgot that. I was talking with Cameron last week. He had told me that, and
Yes, they do.
happens when you get older.
Yeah, that microphone doesn't work anymore, Steve. You fucked it all up. You bought a brand new microphone and you fucked it up within days.
Would he drop it again?
I don't know what he did with that thing. Matt went out and bought the brand new Yeti. Okay,
Yeti X.
Let's tear down some walls here about the show. Okay, so Matt went out and bought the brand new, state of the art Yeti. What is it? What's it called?
Yeti X.
The Yeti X.
So
after hearing Matt on his new Yeti X, I was like, oh, wow, that thing's amazing. Steve was, oh, wow, that thing's amazing. Well, unlike Steve, I still have my regular Yeti. Steve went right out and bought the Yeti X.
Because I wanted.
He has been plagued with nothing but problems since he bought the fucking thing.
Yes. There you go. No, Steve, no.
Okay, you need to go in your StreamYard settings and change it over to that mic.
No, it's the
No, he's been having some horrible issues with the cord, and I'm just like I'm like fucking fuck you guys and your damn Yeti X's. I've got my Yeti, it works fine. I'll wait. I'll wait. I'm gonna buy a new one soon, but it'll be fine.
So I'm not gonna buy one.
Yeti X, and I'm gonna speak louder so you can actually hear me.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. All right.
Fuck. Instead of being like back here and being like, by the way, I'd like you.
Yeah, I'll play a USB port right there.
And
they made the USB port too small.
Okay.
And so it'll easily just come loose.
Okay.
That's the issue I'm having.
Okay.
A little tiny little piece of shit USB.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe, Steve,
you just need a longer cord.
It's not meant to be plugged in and unplugged all the fucking time.
I don't.
Just plugged it in and left it in there.
I did.
And but I saw you plugging and unplugging it 50 million times.
Because it doesn't work.
You see what I deal with here, Kulls? See this?
Yeah.
You want him on your show? I'll take who's you get? What is it, Chris? Is that his name?
I got Bennett.
I'll fucking switch with you.
No, I can't switch Bennett. He's been with me 10 years now. I can't switch Bennett. He's been with me 10 years.
Does that sound better?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I laid it down on the table, and maybe it'll work for the rest of the show.
Just don't touch it. Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't fucking do anything. Ever.
I'm going to touch it.
You need serious.
Of course. He's the kind of guy who says, "Don't look at that guy," and the first thing he does is look at the guy.
Is there anything you wanted to bring up, Katie, that we've gone over or that we've passed?
Don't talk about the Yeti.
Yeah, don't talk about the Yeti.
Well, I found the New York baby video. Your opinion on that interesting?
Oh yeah.
Only because I'm a surface Bigfoot person. I'm not nearly as in deep as you guys are, and I always assumed that it was somebody's pet from what I had heard.
Right.
So to hear you go into the other angle of that was interesting to me.
Right. Yeah. The New York baby video. Obviously, that was one of my first thoughts too. Was could this be somebody's pet monkey? And the fact is that when I talked to Mike Lembo, who was the guy who owned the lake, hence the name Lembo Lake, he said, yeah, we were having the music festivals. We weren't insured for pets, so we couldn't allow animals of any kind. We had a dog bite incident in the early 90s that cost us a lot of money. So we don't allow any pets in. And even the submitter, Doug Pridgeon, had told me that, they didn't let pets in. They turned the guy away with a parrot because, hey, I'm sorry, we can't allow any pets at all. So, that was the ground rules. And the other thing too is in New York, unlike Florida or in some other states, you cannot legally possess a primate unless you are a licensed zookeeper. So, and then the other thing was I checked for any kind of animal escapes, but the large figure in the background kind of indicates to me that, there it is with something larger. Could it be a monkey? Yeah, it's not impossible to think of that.
I have
But
to say, you actually changed my mind on that one too. Reading, because I've heard your analysis before.
Yep.
There's clearly two individuals there,
Right.
bigger and smaller, and it is clearly a non-human primate of some sort.
Right.
Clearly.
And what gets me is that, there has been this crazy theory that, maybe it's an antenna on a car. And that antenna would have to be like
antenna on a car.
Yeah, and see, the problem is people only look at that last second or two of the video where it's swinging down. All right, but how do you explain it from going up over one side, then up into the tree, and then down? And not to mention, if you look at the tree, you can actually see it swing between the two trees perfectly, and then down. And and that's because people, hey, I appreciate people that debunk stuff and that look at stuff objectively, but I was already there. I've already asked that question. Is there anything on the car that may be waving that may have done that? I already asked that question. Number one. But it's something I really didn't bring up. Because it's in my I had to look back in my old notes about stuff like that and talk to Doug again, but I did ask that question. If there's something, is there any? No, we had a rack on the car. We put our stuff on top of the car to go to the thing, so there would have been no antenna on the top of the roof or anything large enough to. But and the other thing too is the weather data. And that's something I did just recently. So let me pull the weather data, and I go to wonderground.com, great site. And the weather data for that day, the weather at 8 p.m. was 0. Or it was the wind speed was 0. So it wasn't anything that would make an antenna, zip back and forth. So it made no sense for an antenna. But then again, I'm probably the only one that has every single frame because I took the video. Obviously I got it VHS, transferred it to DVD, took that video, and then got a program which takes every frame by frame and puts it into JPEG form. And that's how I looked at that video, and a lot of people don't understand is that as an investigator, I do something, you don't move a film from the start of it and go forward. You move from the action point. Where here's where the action is, boom, and then you go backwards because that's how you start to see things that happen at the very beginning. If you try to do it going forward all the time, what you end up is missing some points that are going forward, the little minute stuff. Had I not done that, I probably would have not seen the bigger figure in that.
So just to refresh my memory on that one, first of all, how long is the entire video altogether? Obviously, that's just a portion of it.
I don't even know.
So they weren't filming that particular area.
Yeah, because for anyone who doesn't know, the video that we're talking about, there was a video taken of some people. They're filming like one of their friends doing something.
Right.
But in the background, in a tree, you can see this creature, this thing, swinging back and forth. It is referred to as the baby Bigfoot video. Or baby, whatever.
New York Bigfoot video, and I've kind of tried to rename that the Pridgeon film. For people that because somebody made a big deal. Well, you're showing confirmation bias by saying the New York baby video, and to me it was like not really. It's just a name,
right? But anyway, I know the first time I saw this thing, I was like, "What the fuck is that?" Like that was my first thought. Was what the fuck is that?
I mean, clearly it's like I said earlier, it's a non-human primate of some sort.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
There's no, I don't think there can be that much debate. The weather data that you found backs up the video that you saw. There's no wind going on. You can see that in the trees and all that stuff.
Yep.
So, I mean, everything points to that being some sort of non-human primate.
And if you look at the ambers from the fire, that you can even see the ambers moving up vertically rather than to a direction.
Right. I mean, I'm trying to recollect the video from memory, but I remember that there was no mean, I can see it clearly in my head because it's one of the ones that I really like.
What you see is the video starts out and they're taping their drunk friend talking about burning cans in the fire. They're in a music festival. They were camped on the opposite side of the music festival. Behind the area is very rich in apple orchards and berries. And I remember going out. I remember going there in, I want to say 2014 or so, 2012, somewhere in there when they did the episode for Finding Bigfoot on that film. And they went to me first because I was the one who did the investigation on it. So I put them in contact with Pridgeon and I went out with the production staff. And at that time, when I first got the video, I got the video in 2003. It was filmed in 1997. It was stashed away. Nobody saw it until 2002. They were looking at the video and Doug's fiance goes, "Doug, what's that?" So that's what started it all. So in 2003, Lembo Lake had been turned into an ATV park. So the whole thing looked different. I was like, there's no sense in me going out there. I made some phone calls, spoke with Mike Lembo, looked, researched lab escapes, did all this fun stuff. But then in 2012, 2014, I had that opportunity to go out there and there's wild. Now they're wild, but there's apple trees and it was an apple orchard behind there. And I found an abundance of wild blueberries, wild raspberries, wild blackberries. I think even some wild strawberries. They're just growing all over the place. So, and there's nothing going for a while to the southeast of it or southwest of it. I'm sorry. So you look at that and go, well, there is a great area. You're coming in, you hear some things, a primate's naturally curious. It's going to wander in. But hey, you know what? This is a great food source here. You got apples and all these berries and stuff, and you can, feed a young one and feed yourself. And the very beginning of the video, you see this taller figure walk from the right, kind of mid towards the left side of the screen. And about just as the camera starts to drop, you see something shoot off of it. And the big one continues on, almost like it was being carried. And as it's walking, the thing jumps up onto the tree. So the next frame, when it comes back in, you see the larger one walking back from the left back to the center of the screen where the tree was. And in the meanwhile, you see now the little one is up on the small side of the back to the side, to the left side of the screen. And it climbs up the tree. And then down into the tree, up and then down. And then it starts swinging, making its swings. And at one point, it drops down. Meanwhile, the big one walks to the center of the screen and then turns and then walks back towards the tree it was swinging into. But it was completely in black. There was no kerfuffle like, hey, my monkey just got lost or anything like that. And that's the other thing. If you look at the common sense thing, you have a pet monkey. You're going to keep that thing on a leash. You're going to keep that. You're not just going to let your monkey go play at dusk. You'll never get it back.
You brought it in illegally against the rules of not the park. You brought it in illegally against the law, the state of New York.
Yeah. That whole video.
You are not going to let that monkey climb that tree.
No.
It's very, very.
I think Katie's back on too.
Yeah, it's just super compelling to me. I was disappointed when I had heard that somebody said it was a pet and that was like the company line of like, oh yeah, it was just somebody's pet. And I was always disappointed by that because I thought it was so compelling compared to a lot of the other garbage you see, Yeah.
Well, I always look at it this, people, it's the difference between, it's just confirmation bias. No matter which side of the circuit, there are people out there that think they believe in Bigfoot unless they get the evidence, everything else can be explained. And I'm not that way. You take everything case by case by case. I tried to debunk this figure and in fact, when I got it, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. And I'm like, what the heck? And then I saw the big one. So it definitely changed my impression after first seeing it, but then it opened up. Okay. I have to explain, the pet thing doesn't make sense, but okay, somebody can break a New York state law, but then they got to get it into the park.
Now I got to go back and look at this video again.
Well, yeah,
after the show.
Once they get it into the park, they know they're not allowed to have it in there.
Exactly.
Because I'm sure there was a posting somewhere, no pets. They turned a guy away with a parrot.
Well, yeah. They were checking the vehicles as they came in. They were
You
doing
can't
vehicle
hide a
searches.
monkey.
Yeah,
can't
and
miss
hiding
both.
a monkey is not very easy.
No,
It was a fairly good size. I mean, it was a
There's no way. Like they weren't putting that thing like in the trunk and getting through. Like there's just no way. Like that thing was obviously of considerable size, even though it was on the smaller side.
probably child size. You know, the size
Yeah.
of a child.
yeah. I mean, maybe 3 feet long.
Yeah,
on the short side, maybe 4 feet long on the high side.
I that one, that is one, like I said, that one makes me go, there's something interesting here.
Yeah, but
now here's one I wanted to talk to you about out of your book. One that is one of my favorites, by the way, is the fucking Freeman footage.
Yeah, I mean,
here's a guy who, and we take a lot of shit from fucking oh god, Stroyford.
Yeah, he does
for Freeman whenever we bring it up. But here's a guy that was quote unquote caught hoaxing tracks and comes out with this extremely, what I would call extremely compelling and very interesting Bigfoot footage. And one of the things that you noted in your book about the Freeman footage was there is footage before the encounter, there is footage after the encounter.
Oh.
Paul Freeman's demeanor, in my opinion, when I listen to that, while he gets a little excited when he hears a thing, he goes, "Oh, there he goes!" You know, like even though like otherwise his whole entire demeanor doesn't change at all. He stays the same guy. He's very, you know, but that he just gets that excitement about the thing that's there.
and what gets me is you can tell in his breathing. If you're listening to it, he was a large guy.
Oh yeah, no, he's trudging through the fucking woods.
You can hear him though as he's getting these tracks. He's starting to go. He's getting excited. You know, that's something you would not necessarily.
I actually went back very recently, and not because of this book. This was like a few weeks ago, and watched the original, the whole thing that I could find, the long uncut one on YouTube that I could find, and it's pretty fucking interesting.
It is. It is, and you know, if it turns out to be, you know, and in actuality, Paul Freeman's son has gone on to defend him quite a bit.
Yeah.
Saying,
hey,
that's something that I did.
That's something I didn't know is that he defends his dad, but he's not really into the whole Bigfoot thing.
Right. He's like, listen, my dad said to me, this was real. He would not lie to me. He went to his death saying it was real.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and that's the one I really, when I look at the Freeman footage, I like the Freeman footage a lot more than the Patterson Gimlin footage. When I look at the Patterson Gimlin footage was the thing that I saw when I was young that made me go, holy fuck.
Right. But that may be because of technology. You understand the reason why, you know, the Patterson film was so chopped up is because you only have so much film in that camera.
Right.
You know, whereas, you know, VHS tape, you know, I don't know if Paul's packing another one or a VHS.
Right. He could. Yeah. He was just burning through tape.
Yeah. He's burning through tape. So he's doing what we can do now. Back then you couldn't take, you know, you'd be running out of film real quick or switching film. If you brought a ton of it, switching film every, you know, you want to keep some film in that camera ready to go in case you see something. That was the thought process for that day.
But if I go, you know,
and here's another
my favorite Bigfoot video, I say the Freeman footage.
And also to make another comment on that too, was that Paul started filming because he saw the tracks and then he kept on rolling. All right, here's the tracks. I'm going to try to track it. And then boom, there it is.
The one thing that I would wonder about that footage, and I don't know this answer, so, and I'm sure you do, Steve, has anybody ever come out and said, "Hey, I was the guy in the suit," like they have?
No, absolutely not. No, there's been no Hieronymus to that film.
Yeah, that adds a little, credibility.
Right.
I've always defended Paul anyway. I mean,
And think about it. Is there a possibility with Patterson? Yeah, there is a great, because he did have a financial motive. Paul wasn't out there for a financial motive.
No, Paul Freeman seems to me just like a guy who was interested in something and he was doing it.
And he was trying to prove that he wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
And
that's how Paul, and when people attack Paul Freeman, to me, it's just like, wow, like really, like here's a guy who, like he never got like really famous. Like he wasn't going around on the circuits. Like
he had a few spots on TV, but
yeah, but that's it.
Yeah.
So when I look at the whole Bigfoot phenomenon and I look at the video footage that's out there, I go with the Freeman footage. Like I said, I like the Patterson Gimlin footage because it's that nostalgic thing that I saw when I was a kid. The first thing I saw. Right. Now, and this brings me to the next thing. Now, I'm going to give you the option, Steve, to talk about this or not. There is a big reveal, kind of, not really big, I wouldn't say, because this thing has been debated for so fucking long now. In the book about the fucking Patterson Gimlin footage with you and how you feel about that.
Right.
Do you want to talk about it or do you want to let people wait and read it in the book?
Well, I've been very vocal on my own show about it, but for certain reasons, I was very pro Patterson Gimlin film, and then read a book by Dr. John Napier, and the actual, I don't know if I actually quoted that in the book.
Yes, you do.
I did. Yep. And that's the other thing. Authors don't remember sometimes their own books. It's like, okay, I wrote that, months ago. Did I put that in there? Or didn't I? I have to keep my own copy nearby in case I have to.
Check it out.
Check it out. But and I read this book, and there was a very good biological reason why maybe there is some death. The fact is that it has a conical shaped head. And that is a male feature, not a female feature. And we know Patty has breasts. So when John Green said, and I always say this, when John Green said that Roger Patterson didn't have the biological makeup to create a suit like that, he was right. Because biologically, there's two primates that have conical shaped heads, gorillas and orangutans, and they're only present on the males. And that may also explain why there are some reports of people seeing Sasquatch with rounded heads, not conical shaped heads, and those would be the females. So that kind of made sense. Like, well, that may explain why there's rounded shaped heads, because I always scratched my head. This person said their head was more rounded. It wasn't conical shaped. Why is that? Now I got the answer to that question, but then it put shade on the Patterson Gimlin film.
Okay, so now
I don't know how to.
What if Patty was actually just a tubby male?
Yeah, I was kind of going to go that direction. Well, and even orangutans. You look at an orangutan, a male.
Yeah,
he's got some big man
males,
boobies. Yeah, for sure.
But what if the conical shaped head is also applicable to both the male and female in Sasquatch? Don't know. We just don't know the answer.
You did make me think about it, though.
And I
will say that
we should always look at stuff that is not proven, the New York baby footage included, because there is still that possibility somebody could have broken laws.
Oh, listen, no, absolutely,
there is still a possibility
that could still be a pet.
Right. Yeah.
That you can't rule that out just because it's not probable. Nope. Because it's still within the realm of possible.
Right. And you're right. In the way I look at things, and the Patterson Gimlin film is kind of one of those hard ones to look at. But when you look at sightings like the New York baby footage, like the Vermont trail cam photo, which a lot of people think it's an owl, but I put that out to a scientist. I said, is this something in front of the camera? Because I saw the flaw with the owl theory right away, but I wasn't going to put myself out there as an expert. I was going to go to an optics scientist who said, no, if that was something flying in front of the camera, it would have cast a shadow. And he's right, because you can, when I do live presentations, Steve, you've seen it, where I've talked about the parallax view, where I take my hand, put it in front of the projector and say, okay, if this is the light source of the camera, and I, put my hand in a certain way over here in front of the camera, where is my shadow? It's, it's being projected, but it's only until I come to the surface does it outline my hand. So to me, it was like, okay, this can't be something flying in front. This is something ground based. And then somebody said, well, maybe it's a ghillie suit. Well, it's not hunting season. We've tested it with a ghillie suit, and it didn't really fly, because there's always a mesh type of cloth that's under there that actually gets exposed.
A high quality ghillie suit,
right? Exactly, but we don't see a firearm. We don't see anything. Why would he be entering the person's front yard, and especially when it's not hunting season and the place is marked all over the place? Not to mention the fact there's also ground sensors there, that if somebody came walking up the driveway, the ground sensors would have woke Frank up, and he would have known somebody was coming up the driveway. So all of these things put together. And the other thing a lot of people don't know is Frank actually held the burglar in his home at gunpoint. And Frank has guns, as a lot of Vermonters do. So it made no sense that this would be somebody at 1 o'clock in the morning on a non-hunting mission, wearing a ghillie suit, walking onto somebody's property that's clearly marked, trespassers will be shot. To me, it's the same thing with the New York baby video. You have all these circumstances that argue against these arguments. So in the case of the Vermont trail cam photo, there, if you look at that figure, there are projections there that are not bird-like. There's like this long extension, which I believe is an arm. I mean, what is that? Somebody said, well, maybe it's another animal. Well, if it's another animal, why wasn't it on the previous camera shot? That's a pretty big animal. So, you kind of like, you have to rule out common sense. You have to rule in or rule out common sense things. And like the New York baby video, like the Vermont trail cam photo, they're the common sense items. It's a bird. It's a guy in a ghillie suit. It's somebody's pet monkey. They don't fit. And that's the reason what makes those kind of mysterious.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen the Vermont trail cam footage. Is that one in the book?
It's not footage. It's just
a photo.
Just a photo.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know if I included that one in the book, because I did include it in my last book.
I'm sure you've seen it, Chris.
I'm sure I have too. I just don't. I don't know. I can't place it.
Right. And a lot of people, Phil Poling included, originally said, well, it's an owl. Look at the shape. But pareidolia can work in both ways too.
Hey, yeah. Phil's made some faux pas before. And there's been a couple of them I've been a part to see.
No, I mean, everybody is entitled to their opinion. I understand that, but like I said, the owl theory was ruled out by a scientist.
I can see why people think that.
Exactly. I could too, because I looked at it first too, because the first thing Frank says, well, I showed it to a biologist, the Vermont the game warden. He said, oh, that's an owl. And he looked at it for like 3 seconds. He goes, tell me what you see there. And I'm looking at it and I go, well, that doesn't look like an owl part. And that doesn't look like an owl part. And what the hell is that? And what the hell is this? And then I'm looking.
It looks odd. I'm looking at it now.
To argue on the other side, Steve, it doesn't look like a Bigfoot either. So
it does if you know the position of the ground what it may be doing.
I've seen comparisons and stuff, but I'm not convinced 100%.
I don't. Oh my god, yeah. So you want my instant thought when I see that one is moth.
Could be, but then again, how do you explain the shadow?
Yeah, there is a shadow there.
Yeah, it's a very defined leading edge shadow.
Yeah, no, I see what you're talking about now.
And that's why the scientist says whatever this is on the ground.
Yeah, but that is strange. So here's the thing that I find really strange is you see a shadow from whatever it is there that's on the side, but you don't down underneath. You see what I mean?
Well, that could be positional. I mean,
That's
it could be
just
the
kind of
position. Well, if
see
you
it on
don't,
the other side.
well, if you
completely.
don't see a shadow on one, well, you won't see it completely around the entire thing. You
I
always,
do all the way around on the other side completely. It's just it's weird right there underneath. But yeah,
Right.
that's an interesting photo.
and that would make sense because underneath is where I believe the feet are, and you lose that shadow once you make contact with the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I've shown in my video, if you take a hand, project a light in front of it, as you bring it, that as you get really up to the surface, you can still see that shadow. The shadow disappears completely when your hand is on the ground.
Yeah.
Plus,
But
it becomes more defined the closer to the ground you
Right.
get to.
Right. The
Thank
shadow,
you, Katie, by the way.
Here, there's no definition to that shadow. It's just, but when you get closer, it's got a sharper edge.
So-
and then
So to me, it was weird. It's like, well, this can't be something flying in front of the camera.
That is an odd one.
Oh.
That
And
is
then
a very
the
interesting-
pre-pictures were quite interesting. Of the last picture being the coyote all humped up, running away from something, which is kind of,
I don't
it's all
think it's
heckled up, tail tucked, really weird. And the apples were disappearing, and a lot of people forget the history of that area. That there had been a Bigfoot sighting the year previously.
Is this in the Bennington Triangle?
No, no. This is actually 16 miles as the crow flies from Whitehall, New York.
Oh wow.
And there had been a sighting the year previous in 2009, 0.3 of a mile from that property on the other side of the road. Earlier in that year, there had been another sighting on Lake Bomazine, which is very close to where this is. A year later, there was another sighting about 1.5 miles west of there. And about 2 years after that, there was another sighting about 3 miles further out. So the sighting reports, there's sighting reports in that area, definitely.
Yeah.
So
if these are Bigfoots, the New York baby Bigfoot, this one, they really like apples, don't they?
well, that's
common.
well. Here's a funny thing when you talk about apples. When you had the sightings on Abear Road in Whitehall, New York, the apple orchards that were there were on that side. They were on the north side of Route 4, which is where the Abear Road is. So you have these apple orchards and all these sightings along Abear Road going on. Fast forward, into the 2000s, those apple orchards are now gone. A major apple orchard now is on the south side of Route 4. And beginning in 2006, there was a series of 3 or 4 sightings that occurred on the south side of Route 4. Hence, near the apple orchards.
As a researcher, it just makes sense to me. If you got a wooded area and there's an apple orchard near there, that might be a good place to look.
Food source.
Yeah.
Food source. And the other thing, too, is what makes apples ferment. Now, this is the interesting thing. When I wrote my second book, What Would Sasquatch Do? I did a whole thing about apples and Bigfoot. And one of the things I learned is that, Jane Goodall habituated the chimps with apples. That's how she would get them to start coming closer and closer to her. She found out that the chimps actually liked the fermented apples, the ones that have been sitting there for a while, better than the fresh ones, because the alcohol gave them a little bit of a buzz. And that's what they do. They would come back the next day. She would put down the apples and they would take the old ones and walk away.
Let me ask you this on the Vermont video.
Let me just finish. Let me finish my thought. So what I found out is that the process, the chemical that makes the apple break down and ferment, is called ethol. And in pure form, ethol smells like musk. Now, how many times have we heard a Bigfoot smelling kind of musky? Right. So if we have a rich diet in garlic or onions, don't we sweat that?
Mm-hmm.
Don't we permeate that? So is it possible that a Sasquatch that has a rich apple diet may also permeate that ethol musky type of smell? Just a food for thought.
So in the Vermont trail cam picture, were the apples disappearing actually from the tree, or was it all the ground stuff?
From the tree. If you look at, I put out a new video on my site, the Vermont Trail Cam video, Vermont Trail Cam photo. I have clips of Frank showing you where the apples are.
I think I might
There
have
was
seen
some on the ground, and something had eaten a whole swath out of his apple tree going up 7-8 feet. And Frank's wife was like, maybe it's the deer. He goes, no, I don't think so, because it was so tall and high up. And he said, well, maybe a moose or a bear. And that's why, and she was like, put your trail cam up. He was like, oh yeah, maybe I should. And that's how that whole thing let it stay out there for a week. And yeah, he got some pictures of some crows eating apples on the ground. Because after the tree had been eaten, the apples started disappearing off the ground. And what he had gotten was some crows eating apples, some coyotes picking at the apples. And then the last picture on the whole card was this thing.
Did he proceed to put a camera out there any other time after that?
Yes. Yeah. The camera went right back. Nothing. And, we had actually did a couple of night investigations up there. Nothing.
Why do you think that is?
Huh?
Why do you think that is?
Passing through. If you look at primate behavior, yeah, there's certain foci areas. It may have been just home ranging, which every primate will do. And it was trucking on through, saw what, it was maybe for a while it grabbed some apples, and then it hunkered off. It got its feed. Okay, the apples are off the tree, and now I just got the ground ones. I'm going to move off. Maybe it had its own agenda that we're not sure of. Maybe it was just hanging out in that area for a little bit and then moving on. Something may have moved it on, maybe some human activity, who knows? So it just kind of moved off.
Is he triangulating his cameras now?
Well, Frank is like in his mid 70s now. So yeah. And even then he was like, he had the camera set at the all settings that like, if only he had put it in a burst shot, or he had, did video, and actually in talking to the scientist, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, he was saying how cameras should be set up. And I've used that from this, is setting them up in burst with the shortest amount of delay. And that way you get almost like a time-lapse video of everything. If you take all the pictures and put them together, which I've done with a deer stand. I use it in a test function. My friend was a hunter saying, I got an area that's really good. I'm baiting with tons of apples. I'm like, here, take the trail camera, set the trail camera up. He put it up, and I've gotten 248 pictures of deer eating apples, a bear walking in, deer eating apples, the bear coming back. And, what it did was it set a nice time-lapse video for about 15 minutes using all those pictures. And that's the proper way. And Maccabee explained, he goes, that is the best way, because now you're not blowing your video card or your memory card on video, which takes a lot of room.
Right. You're getting a lot of exposures of the subject of
and information. Right,
yeah. Without burning all that memory out.
Right.
Yeah. That was one of the things you mentioned in the book that I thought was a great idea. Yep. Switching that over on your trail cams or whatever you're using.
And the triangulation. I think that would make a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I preach too, is if you have more than one, triangulate them. Have your in other words, pick an area. Don't try to just pick 3 random, point it this way, point it that way, point it this way. Now I do that in certain cases when I want to watch my camp's backside. Maybe they'll come in and hit the camp and trip a camera. But if I'm watching a particular area, I'm going to triangulate it. So if one camera catches it, it'll catch it on another camera. And what that avoids is how many researchers have gotten the video of a hairy leg or a hairy something, and everybody's saying, oh, that's a Bigfoot. Oh, that's not a Bigfoot. Oh, that's not a Bigfoot. And it starts a big kerfuffle, or something bumped the camera. Well, because I had my camera set on that auto burst at that tree stand, my camera did get bumped. In fact, it's got quite a scratch on the sensor lens because the bear had come up, and the first thing it did came up, it saw it and it scratched it. And then later you see the bear walking around. So if I had not set it on that burr setting, I probably would not have gotten a picture of what actually bumped the camera.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very important. If you get that mystery pass near your camera, hopefully the other two cameras that you have set up triangulating will capture that. What did it?
Yeah. Like I said, Steve, reading this book, I think this is a great book for people who are getting into or who want or who maybe have had an interest in this and who have never taken any type of a dive into it
Absolutely.
on the research aspect of things. Excuse me. But I enjoyed reading it. But like I was telling you, for me, there wasn't a lot of information for me. You
didn't find any of that forensic interviewing stuff, like
I've read a lot of that stuff before. Like I get into a lot.
Most people haven't, so that's why
Right.
It's kind of the addition of let me throw some investigation 101 that maybe a lot of folks don't know. Even though,
right,
I'm thinking about the researchers who are doing really good stuff on the ground, but they may lack a little bit in how to deal with people or knowing the psychology of people.
I think you gave people you give people enough of some ideas of what you should be taking out with you out into the field, etc. Like how to take your evidence. You did enough explanation about DNA evidence, etc., etc. And I think overall, like I said, the book is great for people who are who are dipping their toes in, or who maybe just have had a peripheral interest in it and want to learn a little bit more, or maybe they want to go out on a fucking expedition or something, or go to a research area or whatever. Steve's book is definitely great for that. Now, they can get that on Amazon, Steve?
Yep, absolutely.
And that's the Sasquatch Playbook.
Yep. Yep. Or they can Google my name and there's the other two books as well. The first book we've talked about, the 50 Large.
50 Large, yep.
The second one, which is What Would Sasquatch Do? It's about primate behavior and how it correlates with what we see in Sasquatch behavior. Because there is a correlation, and it gives you a basis of how primates should act and how they won't act. And a lot of people ask me, well, are Sasquatch dangerous? They're not going to rip me apart. Well, not normally. Unless you do something to corner it or piss it off really bad, you're going to be safe. It may bluff charge you, it may try to scare you, it may try to. So that book was more about trying to understand their behavior. This book was more for people either going out there or maybe people who've been out there that want to learn just a little bit more, a different aspect of the whole thing, and a little bit more about critical thinking and how to take in. That's why I try to break down some of the myths that I put in the book. And apply some science, some objectives, some objections to some of it, but not completely shooting it down.
Right.
Because we always have to keep an open mind. And, my 5 tenets of how we should operate, keeping an open mind, but that doesn't mean throwing it out because of fantasy and always telling the truth and responsibility to educate and exposing the charlatans, because that all goes back to, the responsibility to educate.
Yeah. And I did enjoy it. I like I said, for people like me, I just don't know. Like I said, it gave me a little bit of information about you, but I think for me, I think a book that I probably should have read of yours, which we've gone over, is 50 Large, because that's something I kind of understood the story, but it probably would have been better for me to read that to get a better idea of that story before we had done that show. You know what I mean? Rather than this one, but however, this gave me a good idea of how you look at things.
Right.
So in and of that, that was a good thing. The only other thing, by the way, sorry about this. Your father passed away of lung cancer really young for you.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying. I've had 2 relatives die of lung cancer, and it's not the best.
No, and although I write he passed away of lung cancer, it actually was not. It wasn't a smoking related lung cancer.
Did he get the mesothelioma?
Well, a couple of things. The reason why at that time when he passed away, mesothelioma wasn't really a thing.
Right.
What I do know is that my father, in very early life, before he got drafted in the World War II, he went to the National Guard for a 2-year hitch, or I don't know. He went to the National Guard when he was 18, 37, got out in early 41. Then he worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard as a welder. And for those who don't know, welders back in those times worked a lot with asbestos.
Yes, they did.
Then he got drafted into the Army. Of course, God knows what he was exposed to then. Then he worked underground in New York subways. He was a subway operator for 25 years. I know that in the 1980s, early 1980s, there was a collapse of the ceiling in his bedroom, and the insulation was all asbestos.
Yeah.
And he didn't know any better. He just picked all that stuff up with his hands and bagged it up and threw it away and vacuumed and then whatever.
Well, who wouldn't?
So he actually, in 87, 2 years before he got diagnosed with the lung cancer, he developed a lump on his neck. It was right here on the node, and it got bigger and bigger, and he refused to have that looked at.
Yeah.
And he said, I know what it is if they cut me open, because it didn't hurt him, and cancer tumors usually don't hurt. And he says, if they cut me open, it's going to spread. Well, it spread anyway, because I think when they got his lung tumors out, they cut that out and biopsied that was cancer. It actually originated in his neck, in his lymph node. So.
Yeah, it's a rough one. I had 2 family members go from it, so that's a rough one. And you didn't touch on it for very much in the book, but you had brought it up. That was part of your early, when you were younger. And it, like I said, it's a rough thing to go through, and you were taking your dad to chemo. That I can't imagine that was any fun. So
no, and there were so many challenges because it was my second semester in college.
Yeah,
and I remember this college professor. He was a dick, and he said, well, a lot of my grade is based on participation and how often you show up to class. So I told him, I said, hey, listen, my dad's got lung cancer and my mom doesn't drive and I'm taking him to chemo. My uncle who takes him on days he's off, but he works during the day. So I'm all right, no problem. Never got lower than a B on a paper, and I got a D grade on that because of my participation, not being there.
What
a dick.
There's but there's guys that were always like that. Those old school guys that were just like, this is how it is. This is what I believe in. If you don't follow it, fuck. And they're in every walk of life.
Yeah, exactly.
Every walk of life.
And
that was one that I did. Of course, I didn't know about you. Because that's something about you personally. But yeah, if you haven't, go check out Steve's book. You can find it on Amazon. If you search for Steve Kulls, you will find it. If you search for the Sasquatch Playbook, you will find it. Throw some money at Steve.
Throw some money.
Not at Steve Alcorn. Steve Alcorn makes enough money. He's a fucking prick. But yeah, this has been episode 140 of the Fortean Slip, the Sasquatch Playbook with Steve Kulls. If you like this shit, hit that little thumbs up button. If you don't, hit the little thumbs down button. Leave a comment, subscribe. Go check out our good friend who's not here tonight, Matt Knapp, over at youtube.com/Bigfoot Crossroads and youtube.com/Cryptid Tales. Check us out over at anchor.fm/The Fortean Slip. The show will be up tomorrow. I'm still having an issue with everything uploading and being able to get my audio over to Anchor. So usually takes about a day, about 12 hours or so. And the show should be up tomorrow morning. Go check out our good friend Phil Poling over at youtube.com/Parabreakdown. Don't know what Phil's doing, but usually it's something interesting. Check out our good friend Dred Funn over at dredfunn.com and youtube.com/Dred Funn. Check out the boys over at High Society Radio. Look for them wherever podcasts may be found. I talked to Bronx Johnny. He's going to be coming back on the show sometime soon. And I know Chris from Brooklyn wants to come back on with him, so we'll figure that out as well. And check out our friend from tonight, Mr. Steve Kulls, over at the Squatchdetective.com. That's just Squatchdetective.com. And you can also check him out at squatchdetective.wordpress.com. Go give that man some money, buy his book. We will be back next week. We are doing Mysterious Noises. The
Mysterious noises you'll ever want to hear.
What's that, Steve?
I said I'm going to bring all the mysterious noises.
Oh, God.
He's going to eat. He's going to. It's burrito night at the Elkhorn residence.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're going to talk about things like the Tao's hum, the bloop, things like that. And I have found Katie and I are going over a new story that I have found that kind of has me scratching my head a little bit. I will talk with these guys about it a little bit maybe after the show. But we will be bringing that to the show the week after next. So hope everybody's doing well out there. Stay safe. And until next week, see ya.